They told us American doctors would amputate for practice. I learned the truth in March 1945 when Dr. Chester Pemberton from Wisconsin spent 3 hours extracting shrapnel from my infected 13-year-old hand, piece by piece, under kerosene lamplight, humming softly while I wept. He used penicillin meant for his own soldiers. But to understand why he saved the hand of a boy who'd been shooting at his planes, you need to know about the Flak Tower. The kerosene lamp hissed above my head, throwing shadows across the canvas ceiling of the American field hospital tent. March rain drummed against the fabric. Dr. Pemberton's fingers, steady, impossibly gentle, probed the swollen meat of my right hand. I was 13 years old and I could smell my own flesh rotting. The infection had turned my hand into something monstrous, twice its normal size. The skin stretched tight and shiny, marbled with red streaks that crawled up my forearm like angry vines. 3 days ago, shrapnel from our own flak gun had torn through my palm when the breech mechanism exploded. The Oberfeldwebel had wrapped it in a fuel-soaked rag and sent me back to my position. Now I lay on a surgical table in enemy hands, waiting for the saw. Dr. Pemberton leaned closer. He smelled of carbolic soap and coffee. Real coffee, not the Acorn swill we'd been drinking since '43. His wire-rimmed glasses caught the lamplight as he studied the wound. Behind him, an American nurse held the lamp steady, her hands never trembled. Hands, keine Angst, Junge. His German was terrible, all wrong in the mouth, but I understood. No fear. I almost laughed. Fear was all I had left. He selected a pair of forceps from the instrument tray. The metal gleamed. I turned my head away, fixed my eyes on a patch of mildew blooming in the corner of the tent. The rain was getting heavier. Somewhere outside, men were shouting in English. A truck engine coughed and died. This will hurt, but I save your hand. Verstehen? The first piece of shrapnel came out with a wet sucking sound that made my stomach heave. Hot pain shot up my arm, bright and clean, cutting through the dull throb of infection. I bit down on the leather strap they'd given me, tasted old sweat and blood, someone else's blood probably. How many soldiers had bitten the same strap? Good, one more, big piece. He was humming. I realized it suddenly through the haze of pain. The American doctor was humming while he dug metal out of my hand. Some tune I didn't recognize. Cheerful, like he was working in his garden back home instead of elbow deep in a German child's infected flesh. The nurse shifted the lamp. Light spilled across the instrument tray, caught the edge of a small glass vial. Even through my tears I could read the label. Penicillin. I'd heard whispers about it in the Flak Tower. Medicine the Americans had. Medicine that could stop infections the way our doctors couldn't anymore. Medicine we didn't have. Almost finished. You are brave boy. Brave. The word tasted like ash. I wasn't brave. Brave boys didn't weep on surgical tables while enemy doctors saved their hands. Brave boys died for the Führer with songs on their lips, the way the recruiting posters promised. The second piece of shrapnel clinked into the metal pan, larger than the first, jagged. I caught a glimpse of it before my vision blurred, twisted steel, still crusted with my blood and something yellow that might have been pus. Now we clean, then penicillin, your hand will heal. He said it with such certainty. This man from Wisconsin, whose countrymen I had tried to kill with my flak gun 3 days ago, was fighting harder to save my hand than my own commanders ever fought to save my life. But to understand why that mattered, why I'm telling you the story 81 years later, you need to know about the Flak Tower. You need to know what they did to children in the final months, when the Reich was bleeding out and desperate. You need to know how I ended up at that gun in the first place. February 1945, The Hitler Youth Barracks in Cologne smelled like boiled cabbage and fear. I was 13 years old, barely tall enough to see over the mess hall tables, when Oberfeldwebel Tassilo Greim walked in with his clipboard. He had the kind of face that looked carved from wood. Hard angles, no softness anywhere.
Luftwaffe auxiliaries, Flak defense, you, and you.
His finger stopped on me. My stomach dropped like I'd swallowed a stone. Around me, boys tried to make themselves smaller, hunching their shoulders, looking at their boots. I did the same, it didn't matter.
The fatherland needs every hand, even small ones can load shells.
My mother had begged them. I'd heard her through the thin walls of our apartment 3 weeks earlier, her voice breaking as she pleaded with the recruitment officer. She'd already lost my father at Stalingrad. My brother was missing somewhere in the east. I was all she had left. They gave us uniforms that afternoon. Mine hung on me like I was wearing my father's clothes. The sleeves covered my hands completely. I had to roll them up 4 times just to use my fingers. The boots were 2 sizes too large. I stuffed them with newspaper to keep them from sliding off. They make us look like scarecrows. That was Friedhelm, 14 years old with red hair and freckles across his nose. He stood next to me in the supply line, holding his own oversized tunic against his chest. At least scarecrows don't have to shoot at airplanes. You think they'll really send us to the guns? Why else would they give us these? The Flak battery sat on the outskirts of Cologne, a concrete platform surrounded by sandbags and mud. The 88mm gun pointed at the sky like an accusing finger. It was bigger than anything I'd ever seen up close. The barrel alone was longer than I was tall. Grimes showed us how to load the shells. They weighed nearly 20 kilograms each. My arms shook trying to lift one.
You'll build strength. The Americans won't wait for you to grow muscles.
He gathered us that first evening, 6 boys between 13 and 15, and told us what to expect. His voice was steady, matter of fact, like he was explaining how to tie boots.
The Americans torture prisoners, especially young ones. They enjoy it. If you're captured, they'll do things I won't describe. Better to die at your post than fall into their hands.
I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was Oberfeldwebel. He'd fought in Poland and France. He wore the Iron Cross second class on his tunic. Men like that didn't lie. Friedhelm believed him too. I could see it in how his hands trembled when he tried to light a cigarette that night. His first, stolen from a supply sergeant. We sat in the dugout, listening to distant artillery rumble like summer thunder. My sister lives in Aachen. The Americans took it in October. Have you heard from her? No letters. Nothing. He didn't say what we both thought, that she was probably dead. Or worse, whatever worse meant in Grimes' version of American occupation. The cold bit through our thin uniforms. My right hand ached from loading practice. The skin between my thumb and forefinger had split open, leaving a raw, red line that webbed clear fluid. I wrapped it in a piece of torn undershirt. And 3 days after that, I stood in that American field hospital, my hand rotting with infection, facing a doctor from Wisconsin who would prove everything Grime told us was a lie. The American medic who found me spoke no German, I spoke no English, but pain has its own language. He cut away the rag with scissors, and I smelled it before I saw it. That sweet sick odor of flesh going bad. The kind of smell that clung to the bunks in the Flag Tower after a horse died of pneumonia. My hand had swollen to twice its normal size. The skin stretched tight and shiny, mottled purple and yellow. Where the shrapnel had torn through, between my thumb and forefinger, the wound gaped open. White pus mixed with darker streaks. Jesus Christ, how long? He wasn't talking to me. Another soldier stood behind him, younger, holding a rifle. 3 days, maybe 4. We found him at the flag position. 3 days! Christ! He probed the wound with something metal. The pain shot up my arm like electricity. I tried not to make a sound. Grime? always said pain was weakness leaving the body. But my vision went white at the edges and I heard myself whimper. Easy kid, easy now. His voice carried something I hadn't heard in months. Not pity, I knew pity, the way officers looked at us Flakhelfer before sending us back to the guns. This was different. Concern maybe, like I mattered. He called out something sharp and another man appeared. Older, 40 perhaps. He wore the same uniform but moved with the deliberate calm of someone who'd seen worse. Much worse. Let me see. The older man, I would learn later his name was Chester Pemberton from a place called Madison, Wisconsin. Bent close, his breath smelled of coffee. Real coffee, not the acorn swill we drank. He lifted my hand, turned it gently in the light from the tent opening. His fingers were warm. Gas gangrene? Don't think so, no crepitus. But it's bad. Bad is relative, Murphy. Get me a basin, hot water, and find some sulfur powder. They moved around me like I was something fragile, worth saving. At the flag tower, when Klaus broke his leg falling from the loading platform, Grime had two older boys drag him to the aid station. No gentleness, no hot water. Klaus screamed the whole way. Dr. Pemberton rolled up his sleeves. His forearms were thick, covered in dark hair. Working man's arms. My father had arms like that before the war. This is going to hurt, son, I won't lie to you. He said it in English, but I understood not the words, the tone. The way he looked at me, direct, treating me like a soldier, like a person. The tent flap opened. Cold March air rushed in, carrying the smell of mud and diesel fuel. Another boy was brought in on a stretcher, Friedhelm. His face was grey, his breathing shallow, blood had soaked through the bandage on his leg. Wendelin? His voice was barely a whisper. I'm here? Are they going to... He couldn't finish. Couldn't say what we'd been told would happen. The stories about American soldiers and their treatment of prisoners. The things Grime had described in such detail. Dr. Pemberton glanced at Friedhelm, then back at my hand. He said something to Murphy, who moved to Friedhelm's stretcher. We're going to take care of both of you. I didn't understand his words, but I watched his face as he prepared his instruments. Watched the way his jaws set with determination. This man from Wisconsin, whose countryman I had tried to kill with my flak gun 3 days ago, was fighting harder to save my hand than my own commanders ever fought to save my life. The ether mask came down over my face. I tried to fight it. Some animal part of me still believed this was execution by another name. But Dr. Pemberton's hand stayed steady on my shoulder, and the last thing I saw before the darkness took me was his eyes above the surgical mask. Calm, focused, like I mattered, not my own. The sound came from 2 cots over. A GI with burns across half his face thrashing against his restraints. A nurse rushed to him, her voice low and soothing. I couldn't understand her words, but I understood the tone. The same tone my mother used when my little sister had nightmares. My right hand was wrapped in clean white bandages, not the filthy rags anymore. White. The kind of white that meant supplies, organization, abundance. Things we hadn't seen in Germany for 2 years. The pain was still there, but different. Sharper, cleaner somehow. I tried to flex my fingers and felt them move beneath the dressings. All of them. Easy, son. Don't try to move it yet. She appeared beside my cot, red hair tucked under her cap, freckles across her nose. She couldn't have been more than 25. She held a canteen to my lips and I drank. The water was cold, clean. I started crying again and I couldn't stop. She didn't tell me to be brave. Didn't tell me to act like a soldier. She just pulled up a stool and sat there while I wept, one hand resting on my good arm. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut. They'd found him in a farmhouse cellar, still in his SS uniform, still clutching his sidearm. He saw me, and his good eye widened. Fassbender. You're alive. His voice carried that same edge it always had. Like he was still giving orders, like we weren't both prisoners now. Both defeated. Your hand? They saved it. The American doctor. He operated. Friedhelm stared at me. Then at the nurse. Then at the wounded Americans surrounding us. Men who'd been given morphine, clean bandages, surgery. Men who'd been our enemies 3 days ago. They operated on you, a German. Yeah, impossible. This is some trick. They want information. But even as he said it, I could see the doubt creeping into his face. The same doubt that had been eating at me since the nurse first gave me water. Everything we'd been told about the Americans, the propaganda, the warnings, the certainty that capture meant torture and death, all of it crumbling like wet paper. Dr. Pemberton entered, making his rounds. He checked the burnt soldier first, adjusted his morphine drip. Then he came to me, unwrapping my bandages with careful hands. The incision was clean, stitched with precision. He'd cut away the infected tissue, drained the abscess, saved the bone.
Good, very good. No fever?
He pressed the back of his hand against my forehead. The gesture was so casual, so fatherly, that I felt my throat tighten. 9? No.
You're a lucky boy. Another day and we'd have lost it for sure.
He moved on to Friedhelm, who jerked away from his touch. Don't.
Suit yourself, but that eye needs looking at.
Pemberton shrugged and continued his rounds. Friedhelm watched him go, something like confusion, replacing the hatred in his expression. Why? Why would they waste supplies on us? I looked at my bandaged hand. At the clean cot beneath me. At Nurse Mitchell checking on the burnt American with the same care she'd shown me. I don't know, but they are. The tent flap opened again 2 hours later. I'd been watching the canvas ripple in the wind, listening to the rain drum against it, when Dr. Pemberton returned with a metal tray covered by a white cloth.
Time to take a proper look at that hand, son.
His German was terrible. The accent thick as Wisconsin cream. But the word son came through clearly enough. I hadn't heard that word in months. Not since my father stopped looking at me after I volunteered for the Luftwaffe Auxiliary. They're going to take it off. The hand. I've seen what gangrene does. Friedhelm whispered from his cot, his voice carrying that bitter certainty he wore like armor. But Dr. Pemberton was already unwrapping my bandages, and I couldn't look away. The cloth stuck to the wound. Each layer peeled back revealed more corruption. Yellow pus, black tissue. The sweet rot smell made my stomach turn.
Jesus.
He said it soft, not angry, almost sad. He touched the swollen flesh around the wound with fingers that barely pressed. Testing. His hand smelled like carbolic soap. Clean. Everything here was so impossibly clean.
Nurse Mitchell, I need irrigation solution. Warm, and bring the surgical kit.
She appeared beside him, moving with practiced efficiency. The burnt American soldier 2 cots down moaned in his sleep. She'd given him morphine an hour ago. I'd watched her measure it carefully, her face concentrated. The same face she wore now, preparing the instruments for my hand. Will you cut it off? My voice cracked, 13 years old, and my voice still hadn't decided what it wanted to be. Dr. Pemberton looked at me then. Really looked. His eyes were brown behind wire-rimmed glasses that caught the lamplight.
Not if I can help it. You're going to need that hand. For after.
After?
After all this, after the war, you'll need both hands for whatever comes next.
He believed it. I could hear it in his voice, that there would be an after for someone like me. A German boy who'd fired an 88mm Flak gun at American bombers 3 days ago, whose shells had maybe killed men like the one sleeping 2 cots away. The first piece of shrapnel came out with tweezers that caught the light. A jagged triangle of metal, dark with dried blood. He dropped it into a metal pan with a small clink. Then he irrigated the wound with warm saline that burned like fire.
I know, I'm sorry. Gotta get it clean.
He worked for 3 hours. I counted the seconds between each extraction. 4 pieces of shrapnel total, each one a small victory. He hummed while he worked. Some American song I didn't know. The melody was simple, sad and hopeful at the same time. Nurse Mitchell held the lamp steady the entire time. Her arm never wavered. When Dr. Pemberton finally reached for a small glass vial, she nodded once.
Penicillin. This is going to sting worse than the cleaning.
It did. The injection felt like liquid fire spreading through my hand. But I watched him wrap it afterward in clean, white gauze. Layer after layer. Professional, careful. Like my hand mattered.
Du behältst deine Hand.
You keep your hand. His German was still terrible. But those 4 words were perfect. I felt the tears before I could stop them. Hot tracks down my face. Dr. Pemberton pretended not to notice. He just squeezed my shoulder once and moved to check on the burned American. This man from Wisconsin, whose countrymen I had tried to kill, had just fought harder to save my hand than my own commanders ever fought to save my life. The hand healed, not perfectly. The scars would remain for the rest of my life, but it healed. Dr. Pemberton checked on me every day for 2 weeks. He never asked about the Flak gun, never asked how many bombers I'd fired at. He just changed my dressings, made sure the infection didn't return, and sometimes brought me extra rations when he thought no one was looking. The war ended 3 weeks after my surgery. I was processed through the POW system, classified as a child soldier, and eventually released to what remained of my family. My father had been killed at Kursk. My mother had died in the firebombing of Würzburg. I had an aunt in Heidelberg who took me in. I didn't speak for the first month. The hand worked. I could move the fingers, grip things, but I couldn't find words for what I'd seen, what I'd done, what had been done to me. My aunt was patient. She'd lost her husband and both sons. We were a house of ghosts, learning to be human again. One morning I picked up my grandfather's broken pocket watch from the mantel. The case was dented, the crystal cracked, the mechanism frozen. I spent 3 hours taking it apart with my scarred right hand. The fingers were stiff, clumsy, but they worked. By evening the watch was ticking again. My aunt cried when she heard it. Not sad tears, something else. You have a gift, Wendelin, a gift for fixing broken things. I became a watchmaker. It took years of training. My hand would never have the perfect dexterity of someone who hadn't been wounded. But I learned to work with the limitations. Tiny springs, delicate gears, mechanisms that required patience and precision, and steady hands that had once fired an 88mm Flak gun at boys not much older than I'd been. In 1952, I immigrated to America, to Wisconsin, to Milwaukee, just 100 miles from Eau Claire, though I didn't know that then. I opened a small watch repair shop on Mitchell Street. I married a German girl from Sheboygan. We had 3 children. My wife asked me why. I told her about the field hospital, about the infection that should have killed me, about the doctor from Wisconsin who saved a hand that had no right to be saved, that belonged to a boy who'd been shooting at his countrymen 3 days before. She held my scarred hand and didn't say anything. She didn't need to. I never found Dr. Chester Pemberton. I tried over the years, wrote letters to the Veterans Administration, checked records. But there were thousands of medics, and my memory of his face had faded. And maybe he'd died in the war. Or maybe he'd gone home and never wanted to think about Germany again. I'm 93 now, the shop is closed. My hands finally gave out 5 years ago, arthritis finishing what shrapnel started it. But I can still move the fingers, still feel the scars that run from my wrist to my knuckles. I was taught that Americans were monsters. that they would torture us, execute us, show no mercy to soldiers of the Reich. A man from Eau Claire, Wisconsin proved that everything I'd been taught was a lie. He saved my hand, he saved my life. And in saving them, he saved something deeper. The part of me that could still believe in human decency after everything I'd seen. These stories are disappearing. Every month, fewer of us remain who remember what really happened. Who can tell you that war is not what you see in films? It's children with infected hands and doctors who choose mercy, and the long, quiet years afterward when you try to understand how you survived. This account is a dramatization based on documented experiences of child soldiers in the final months of World War II. I am 103 years old now. My right hand still aches when the weather turns cold. Dr. Pemberton died in 1987. I found his obituary in a Wisconsin newspaper, sent flowers to a man whose face I barely remembered but whose hands I could never forget. My grandchildren ask me about the war. They want to hear about ideology, about who was right and who was wrong. But I tell them about Dr. Pemberton spending 3 hours meticulously cleaning my infected hand with warm saline, removing shrapnel fragments one by one, then injecting penicillin and wrapping the wound in clean white gauze while speaking softly in broken German. We share these stories so the humanity of that generation is never forgotten. If you believe these memories should be preserved, please subscribe to help us keep them alive, before the last of us who remember are gone. I can still feel the warmth of that saline water, gentler than any touch I'd known in 2 years of war. The characters, incidents and dialogue in this video are dramatized for narrative and entertainment effect. While some events may be inspired by real-life themes, this story is a work of fiction.